So this is the SCAR 17 that I've owned for over 7 years. Some of you guys may have seen some of the early videos I produced around 7 years ago. When I was first getting into shooting .308, I had this rifle, I had a longer rail, it was tan originally, it was one of the FDE models, and I was trying to shred with it as fast as I could, shooting basic M80 ball ammunition with a red dot. And when I got the rifle, I was surprised at how soft it was with the PWS brake and just with how the SCAR recoils. It's a very soft recoil impulse. I was impressed with the gun and I could shoot it pretty fast. Fast forward, the gun has gone through many different configurations, longer rails, different weird rails, reproduction rails, like this Black Hills SSR, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's had multiple paint jobs, and you'll see the paint is like coming off, and it looks really cool because you can actually see that it's been used, it's actually weathered. And I've put around 6,000 rounds on this rifle. Now the rifle would have more if I shot the gun more regularly, but we have a lot of guns in the armory and we, shoot them all a little bit. So, but 6,000 rounds on this gun with some of the accuracy testing I was able to do today is going to show us some interesting things. So the first thing I noticed shooting this rifle for the video that just launched on the main channel was it seems to recoil more than I remembered. And I personally think this might be because of the gas port, or the gas system is starting to get a little bit larger, or ports are starting to open up, because the rifle is starting to recoil a little bit harder than it was when I first purchased the rifle. Now this is a theory, this is just how I felt with the rifle. It could be because I'm using a Surefire War Comp, which is not as aggressive as the PWS brake, although I actually hate this thing because it drives the gun down so much. I really don't like War Comps on .308 guns. You can't really time the ports, off to one side, and I don't really recommend that anyway, because then you start to get into some weird stuff. So it was just a very dramatic pushing the gun down as I was shooting, and it was actually causing me to drive rounds down into some of my paper targets where I would have a center impact, and then my second round would actually be low in the Charlie zone, which you don't typically get with a lot of guns. So yeah, the gun was recoiling more than I recalled. Played with the gas system, I was good to go. Once I threw a suppressor on, the 7.62 Mini, which is probably the most versatile Surefire suppressor on the market. It's the same size as a 5.56 RC2 full size. But you can run this on literally everything. 300 blackout, 6.5 guns, 308, 5.56 guns. I have my personal 7.62 minis. I use them on everything. So once I threw the can on here, this rifle recoiled super nice. The downside to that is it does just way more, and it is also longer and a little more cumbersome, but running the gun was quite a bit faster, and the recoil was much more predictable. Now, lots of people out there say, don't run a suppressor on a SCAR because you void the warranty. Well, how many of you guys are using gun warranties? I mean, let's face it, most people out there are not using warranties. Most people didn't even do the SIG 320 recall. So I don't think that point is a very good one as a factor that you use to dock points off of the SCAR, because frankly, most people are not running warranties on their weapons. I don't think I ever have. With that said, one thing you could do is buy a SCAR, shoot it for a couple thousand rounds, 1,000 rounds, make sure everything's working, and then suppress it. Because obviously, if you do get a lemon, you want to be able to send it in, but once you're inside of a couple hundred rounds, you probably have a fine weapon, and it's going to be okay. Now, the thing about the SCAR 17 that I like the most, we're just going to cut straight to what I really like about the SCAR 17. I had this epiphany recently. It was a few months ago. It was right when I woke up, which was kind of weird. I was shooting a lot of big frame guns, a lot of .308 guns. I was having issues with a lot of different weapons, gassing especially. And I woke up one morning and I went, wait a second. I didn't have problems with the SCAR. The entire time I was shooting the SCAR 17 from like 2018 onwards, 2019, whenever it was when I bought this thing, it was 2018. I didn't have a bunch of issues. I didn't have a bunch of gassing and malfunction issues, stoppage issues. Now, I wasn't paying attention to how accurate the gun was because I wasn't doing a lot of that at the time. But I didn't have a lot of issues with the SCAR, while I'm having all these other issues with all these precision gas guns and large frame guns. So the SCAR 17 has been my particular model, which is a reciprocating version that I bought back then. I do have the Belgium logo on here, so I guess this is I'm assuming a Belgium version, not the Made in America one. You can correct me on that, you SCAR owners out there. But this gun has run great for me. Now, I did have a malfunction the other day when I was on the range shooting M80 ball, and I transitioned to my handgun, like any good, trainee would do. And I did notice that and be like, oh, well, that sucks. I've had one malfunction in this like 300 round range day. Could be the ammo, could be the gun, and now that I'm at like 6,000 rounds, I'm not sure. But overall, inside of those 6,000 rounds, the gun has run very reliably, and that is very cool. Now, as far as one of the biggest issues with this gun that I will talk about, and I even noticed it today, all of the components on the gun rattle and move a lot. The stock can move a lot, and you'll see on here, one thing that I did early on is I shimmed everything on the UGG boot, on the stock. I even shimmed where I normally place the stock as far as where I retract it to get rid of any unnecessary wobble back and forth, or some of it. I shimmed all this down, partly to make it a little bit more comfortable, but also prevent this from rattling quite as much. I even shimmed some of the mechanism here, the little tooth action that's interfacing with the rest of the stock. And to the point, I've shimmed so much of this, and that was to prevent the rattle in and out, that now when I look at the stock, you might be able to see it. It's actually canty-wampused off to one side. It's not perfectly straight. Now that hasn't been a problem for me when I'm actually shooting, because it's kind of flaring away from the body, and it's actually been okay. But I did go in here and I did some stuff. So I'm actually going to take apart the gun and show you guys just how wild I got. Stock slides down. I even shimmed the inside of the actual like stock itself, how it's touching against the receiver, to keep that from wobbling. Now, this is probably not something everyone has to do to their scars, but it was something I did just to get it to fit a little bit better. Do I have to do that on most of my other guns? No, I don't. So this is definitely points in the negative for the scar. But if you're willing to get your hands dirty and do some DIY, it's not too bad. So stock comes off. Pull the rubber down. And this comes out. And then boom. Gun's now apart. Comes apart really nicely, which I like. Number one upgrade you should buy if you buy a scar. Get the G&G charging handle. What this is going to do is it's going to drop the charging handle down lower. So if you are running a scope mount, a lot of like Geisley scope mounts or things like that that have knobs, you're not going to be smashing your hand every time you're charging the weapon if you are running the charging handle on the left side, which I would recommend. Otherwise, you're going to have to be running like an AK, and that's stupid. Stupid manual of arms when you can do something on the other side. Even with this large knob of the Aimpoint comp sight, which some people in here saw it and were like, oh my goodness, it's going to be a problem. I did not have any issues with this particular charging handle being clear of this large knob. And I kind of did that on purpose to accentuate this, but this upgrade right here, absolutely buy one of these. I had some of the other ones out there, the other angled ones. I think KDG made one, not as good as this one. It does rattle around a little bit, but it gets the job done. So Geisley trigger, the next upgrade. So scars come with stock triggers. I got a Geisley trigger early on. I was putting Geisleys in basically everything, and the trigger is excellent. It's very fast. It's also it has a very crisp wall. One thing I did, because I was shooting a lot in the sun, I actually skate taped the front face of the trigger. I did this on a couple triggers, and it helps a lot when your finger's all sweaty and oily, and just gives you a little bit more positive just surface on the trigger itself. That was kind of fun. PMM bad lever works super well. A normal AR-15 bad lever will not work on a scar. You have to do something a little bit different. So PMM came out with this, I think shortly after I got the scar, I think is when they came out with this. Found them, was like, cool. Bought them for MCXs, bought them for scars. These things work really well. I did have one of these break though. I think recently, or a few years ago, they fixed it. They made the arm a little bit beefier. But on the scar where I did have the breakage, or was it the MCX? No, I think it was a scar. I just broke it off, sanded it down, and had an enlarged just ping pong paddle, which is pretty cool. So PMM, so there's some upgrades I definitely did to this gun to make it a little bit better, and it did. It made it a lot better. As far as rails go, my favorite rail that I ran, so I had a bunch of different versions. For those of you that want to get more rail space to mount lasers, you want more rail space to grab with your hand, which is not absolutely necessary. Like even this amount of rail, you can absolutely have good control on the rifle. When it comes to mounting lasers and lights, that becomes an issue. The light bar is great because you can push a light further out and save space for your hand. In this case, in order for me to run a laser particularly well, I'm running the Black Hills SSR reproduction, which this is a sort of a minimalist rail. It was made for some SOCOM units back in, I want to say, like the 2011 era, specifically for guys to mount thermals. I think it was for NSW because they had scars. So they could run a thermal unit up front. Then this guy went out, made a reproduction, kind of cool. Is it cool? Yeah, kind of. Frankly, I think these rails are a better option. So this was the rail I had originally. This was a Midwest M-Lock. Gave me enough space up top to mount a laser. I still had my front sight post if I absolutely wanted it, which frankly, I took that off later. Yeah, I'll never put that back on. M-Lock, it's nice and slim. It gives me some rigidity on the gun. Pushes it out a little bit further so I can mount more stuff and grab. I will say the front sight post, like just because you push the rail further out, does not mean it's going to actually help, because you do have this gas block right here in front sight post that heats up very quickly, typically right there. And so you're going to run into problems most likely. But that one's pretty good. Later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to pop that front sight post off because I never used that thing. And I'm going to basically build a Mark 20 and use this full enclosed rail. So this Midwest rail, I think they make an M-Lock version, and Picatinny just gives me full length Picatinny. And it gives me pick to grab onto, just a little bit nicer, eliminates some of the material where my thumb is, could be to get burned. And this was just a much better rail option. Adds weight, but helps with recoil management. Something that's pretty nifty. Another tip that I have for magazines. So Scar mags, reliable in my experience. I think there's some other mags out there now. I'd run Scar mags because, they work. However, I have had base pads slide off, like on mini magazines. Even AR mags can do this too. So one upgrade that I did early on, although I didn't know this was going to be a thing, I added Magpul pull tabs, mostly because these mags are slick. So when you're going to do reloads, my hand, especially when it's sunny and sweaty and nasty, not covered in blood, but sweat, sometimes I would miss the magazine. It just wasn't super convenient. So I threw Magpul covers on here. What I didn't realize is by throwing these Magpul covers on here, I actually was creating some safety for the magazine as far as the floor plate coming off, because it's helping just bind that together and prevent it from moving around. So I should be putting these on all my magazines. I have them on most of them. So if you're someone who wants a little bit more rigidity when it comes to, or I should say something that's stickier and easier to grab, definitely look into these, whether you're running from a plate carrier, chest rig, or from your belt. Throw them on there. I'd recommend these on any full metal magazine just to give you a little bit more friction. And those work well. As far as mag carriers, the ones that I've been using for years, I think all 7 years, is this guy. This is an ITW Fast Mag. Some of you guys from the 2010 era will remember these. They were really hot stuff back then. Military morons. I remember seeing these on there for the first time. I thought it was the coolest thing. Then they made their way into Call of Duty games. They work quite well. One thing that I did, though, is there's a rubber band right here. I realized when I first bought these, there were 2 bands. Retention, super tight. It also depends on the magazine. So I actually cut this band off, and then it was too loose, and so I took tape and taped around there, and then I could kind of specify the retention that I want. It broke at some point. Hasn't been an issue with Scar mags, but it gives me a belt-worn pouch that I can run my Scar mags in, my AR-10 mags in. So this is typically the mag pouch I use when I'm doing any sort of battle rifle stuff. And you can still get these. They work really well. You can even stack pouches on top, which I don't recommend. But if you want to do that, you obviously can. For chest rig and plate carrier magazine carrying, I'm not using this. I've been using a Velocity triple placard for a long time, but that holds 3 mags. But this is our triple flap placard. And the nice thing with this is it'll fit 7.62 mags very nicely. Boom. It's still nice and easy to grab, especially with that Magpul pull tab. I can also roll these up, tuck them inside, which also tips the magazine outwards, making it easier to grab, and just firms up some of the retention to keep the mag from coming out. But this particular placard that I'm running can fit all magazines. So I don't have to swap around placards. If I decide to shoot the SCAR, if I decide to shoot one of my ARs, I can literally run the same placard, and we came out with this year. So when I was getting ready to shoot this video, I was like, oh, I need to find that velocity placard, and then I realized, no, I don't. I can just use this instead. So this is what I ran for the video, and yeah, it runs really good. And at any time, I can take these out, swap to AR mags or MP5 mags, or whatever I want. So if you want something versatile because you are shooting lots of different calibers and you don't want to constantly swap out placards, definitely check this one out. It's pretty cool. Now the stock, a lot of people complain about the UGG boot on the SCAR, that it can break, especially from mortaring the rifle to clear stoppages. I haven't run into any of those problems. I did go and purchase the KDG ACR stock forever ago, specifically because it's an ACR stock. Like, it looks really cool. That's why, you know, you buy a SCAR in the first place, because it looks cool. The downside, and what I did not like about the ACR stock, is surface area. So I like having a lot of surface area for the stock for recoil management, especially on a gun like the SCAR that does move a little bit more. And I noticed, partly also due to the curvature of the KDG stock, it would not land in my shoulder very well, and probably because I was pretty scrawny back then. And so I ended up going back to the UGG boot because this just was not as comfortable, and it was not giving me as good of recoil management and just surface area getting on this particular stock. I did run this on my SCAR 16s because 5.56 doesn't matter as much, but the UGG boot was favorable over this guy right here. Now later on I bought this. This is the KDG Precision stock. I don't think they make this anymore. Maybe they do, or they're really hard to get. It's like the Mark 20 stock, so it has all the features of, you know, adjusting it to your length of pull for specific specific scopes you might be running, and a bag rider and a place you can actually hook into while you're grabbing your bag. Cool stuff. However, on this gun, being a battle rifle, is kind of how I'm treating this gun from now on. I'm not going to be running this stock. Probably not. I think I did it in my precision video on this gun, but that guy, you know, I'm probably not using that very much. Now, accuracy. Let's talk about accuracy. So I went online, I did some research. There's SCAR people, there's a lot of fanboys. There's also a lot of people that hate the SCAR. You'll see there's some videos on YouTube of SEALs talking about how much they hated the SCAR. And yeah, if you're a dude who's issued a gun and you have no choice, you can't pick another weapon, yeah, you'll probably have a lot of feelings. Us civilians, however, can buy whatever we want. Now that's where we run into like buyer's remorse, or, you know, some confirmation bias of people who buy a product, spend a lot of money, and then they have to cope with their purchase, usually by talking up their product, talking up their purchase, when in fact the gun actually sucks. And so there's some of that as well. However, I had a pleasant surprise today. So I haven't done extensive group testing with this rifle in the past. I've shot some groups here and there, you know, not too much. But I've also bullied this gun. I've beat this gun up for years. Haven't necessarily kept it super clean, although this gun was cleaned very recently, a deep clean, everywhere, barrel, inside, guts, all that good stuff. But I went to the range with a bunch of different ammunition types, and I shot groups. For this particular range day, I shot 5-round groups. I was trying not to heat the gun up because I was trying to get through this because we had a lot of other work to do. I prefer 10-shot groups, as you guys know. My philosophy is also grouping guns when the barrel's dirty. So this gun was cleaned. I then had a 300-ish round range day for the main video on the main channel. Did not clean the barrel before shooting these groups. So it's a somewhat fouled barrel at like 300, 400 rounds. So this is exactly the accuracy I should expect if I'm actually using this rifle for stuff. So the worst group that I got was with the Federal 175 grain Match Kings. Now I only shot one group, so like, could some of that be me? And if I shot other groups, would it get better? Possibly, but it is coming in at 1.75 MOA. So, okay, cool, 5-shot group with the 175s. With the Federal 168s, it was a little better. Now, I did find a lot of people online saying 168s are what SCAR 17Ss prefer. So if that's the case, yeah, my gun seems to prefer them too. So this was a 165 or 164, depending on how you want to look at it. The M80 was actually did okay with a 1.4 group. That's not bad. I think Brandon was saying his SCAR is like a 2-inch group with M80 ball. My gun's doing 1.4, and I even noticed this when I zeroed the rifle at 100 with my red dot. I was getting some pretty good groups. And I was like, hey, that's cool. My gun's not shooting M80 ball at like 3 MOA like some of our guns. So I thought that's actually pretty cool. A 1.4 inch group with M80 at 100 yards. Like, yeah, I'll actually take that. That's actually pretty rad. Then I got down to Fiocchi. You know, Fiocchi has actually done really well, or Fiocchi, however you want to say it. These were 175 Sierra Match Kings, 107. So yeah, probably like a 1 MOA-ish group. If I shot a 10-shot group, it would probably come up to like 1.2, 1.3, just statistically as you add data, generally it grows. But 107 is not bad. However, then I got to the Hornady ammo. The 178 grain, I want to say it's 178. It's not 175, so I think it's 178. I got a .99, 993 to be exact. Was pretty happy with that, actually. That was pretty cool. So the gun with, and for just for y'all to understand, I'm shooting this in the prone. I have a rear bag. I had my MDT bipod braced in the center, or like in the center of the gun because I don't have a long rail. And I shot the Night Force 2.5 to 10, which I've had the scope for literally forever. In fact, this gun was the first gun I put this on. So it's actually kind of fun. But ran this on 10X, zeroed it, shot the groups with that, or shot on 9X, I think. But the best group of all was with the Hornady 168 grain Sierra Match Kings, and it was a .94. It was a decent group. You have obviously this guy out here where it's like, okay, was that me? Was that not me? If it wasn't me, would it be like a .6? Possibly, but then if I shot 10 rounds, would it go up? Probably. It'd probably end up then being a 1 MOA group. So all this to say, just from my fairly hasty grouping of this rifle this morning, with some match ammo, with some ball ammo, this is a 1.5 to 1 MOA type rifle. That's pretty cool, especially considering I beat this gun up to like 6,000 rounds for over 7 years, haven't taken the best care of it, absolutely crushed it. I've only cleaned it like twice. It's done quite well. Now I will say one recommendation, barrel nut screws on the Scar. When and if you replace the handguard on your rifle, you're gonna have to take these out and do some stuff. Make sure you witness mark these. There was on one iteration, these came loose, and that might have been an ARMORY issue, who knows. On one of these rails that got put on, and then my barrel was literally like wobbling around, and my accuracy was insane. I remember seeing it one day and noticing, oh wow, it's like really loose. So definitely witness mark your barrel nut screws, either right when you purchase the rifle or if you go and modify the rifle. From factory, they're probably okay, but definitely witness mark those suckers. They can fall out. And I've got everything witness marked just because this is a pretty brutal rifle. It will rattle all of your components much more than a normal rifle. You'll even notice over here, my light came loose twice. This is jury-rigged with some holster hardware that probably was not Loctited, and during the range day the other day, these were rattling loose just from this being a 308 and being pretty punchy. Most 5.56 guns won't do that as fast. So definitely make sure you witness mark your gun if you are running a Scar, and make sure you're using good components. Now, as far as this beating optics to death, I haven't had any of that. I've run ACOGs, I've run EOTechs, aim points, Night Force scopes. The caveat I'll say there is, I generally don't leave one optic on this rifle for very long. I'm constantly swapping around. I was doing a lot of that back in 2019, in 2020, 2018. So I never left one optic long enough on this rifle to see if it would actually blow up. If I was curious about that, what I would do is actually buy a new Scar, pick an optic, put it on there, shoot it to like 2,000-3,000 rounds and see if the optic then was fried. So with how much I swapped stuff around, you know, there's not good enough data, I don't think, to say, yeah, the Scar doesn't destroy optics, because I was literally changing optics every 500 rounds, something like that on average. So as far as should you buy a Scar 17, I think I've answered that. We did another video on this a while ago. Due to how expensive they are, there are better options on the market. If you want a battle rifle or some sort of 308, you're probably better off buying some form of AR-10 on the market. When it comes to a cool gun, you want something that's, you know, fun and interesting and different. Yeah, the Scar 17 is very cool. There's a non-reciprocating charging handle version, so that's not flying around every time you're shooting. The downside to that is you can't force the bolt closed if your gun is starting to get kind of gunked up and kind of perform sort of some stoppage malfunction clearing and shoving around in there and then taking a shot. Ooh, which reminds me, points in the Scar's favor. We had an issue at the range last week when we were filming the video for the main channel. Because we've started shooting 6.5 guns, and as you know, 6.5 can go in .308 mags and vice versa, this is the first time we've ever had a 6.5 round end up going into a .308 magazine. And at the start of a drill, brought the gun up and got a click. Now I thought, crap, the gun malfunctioned. That's kind of lame because, you know, I think the SCAR 17 is pretty reliable. Well, after playing with it and messing around, I realized a 6.5 round had gotten into the chamber. I pulled the trigger on it and it didn't fire. So that is cool because obviously you can run into problems when you mix and match calibers. It's not something you should try to do. But the gun didn't go off. It didn't tumble a bullet down the barrel, do anything stupid like that. I was able to handle it just fine. And that was a Hornady 6.5 round that, again, somehow we have a table that has .308 on it and 6.5. And at some point, a bullet fell in and it got loaded because multiple people were loading. I could have made that mistake very easily, though, because they do look similar. But I didn't have any problems. So that was very cool. This gun, at least with that particular round from that manufacturer, did not detonate. There was a small dent on the primer from the firing pin, I guess, hitting that out of full battery or something. As soon as I dropped, I will say the extractor, the charging handle, I could not get the round removed from the breech. As soon as I dropped my cleaning rod into the barrel, it just fell right out. It wasn't a tight fit or anything like that. It just would not connect with the ejector extractor and actually pull the round out. As soon as I tapped it, it fell right out. And then I saw, oh, it's a 6.5 and I didn't die. So that was pretty cool. But as far as buying a SCAR 17, as a battle rifle, I think it's pretty cool. As some sort of precision gun, maybe it would also be really cool. I would like to get a Mark 20 at some point and shoot one of those. I know a bunch of guys who shoot those. Again, there's mixed opinions about those as being like a really good precision rifle. But I do find it interesting, you know, just like, you know, some of the guns out there, like the DD5 V4, it's kind of hard to say. And some of the other precision guns out there, often you buy them and have to upgrade them. And some of the guns on the market, like the Mark 20 SCAR, already come with a match trigger. They already come with a, you know, a long rail that you can immediately mount a bipod to and do stuff to. Some guns on the market are already optimized for precision shooting, and they might actually save you money instead of buying something and adding a bunch of mods like I did on this rifle. So yeah, SCARs are like $35-ish, $100, I think, for a 17. And then after you add the trigger, maybe a different grip, which you have to get a SCAR specific grip. You can't use an AR one, or normally you can't. I just threw this A2 on there because it looked cool and awesome. But you're gonna add all these upgrades and the gun's gonna get up to $4,000+. And then it's like, wow, what could you have done instead? Buying something like a Seekins or, you know, something else. But if you want cool factor, yes, the SCAR is very cool. Yes, you could shoot it really fast. Yes, it does seem to be reliable. And yes, it does seem to be accurate as well, even when it's completely busted in with a bunch of ammunition, a bunch of rounds. So hope that was interesting to you guys. Hope you learned something. If you are interested in buying a SCAR, if you own a SCAR 17 and you have experienced similar things, or maybe you haven't, or maybe your gun is not shooting as accurate, or maybe your gun is shooting more accurate with certain ammunition, I'd be interested to hear y'all's feedback. And I know other people who are interested in more information would also be interested in seeing that as well. So please take a second, leave a comment if you use a SCAR 17 and you have experience. I've Googled around on some forums prior to filming this, and there were lots of people dropping information, and that is always useful. Now, are those people who shoot thousands of rounds or hundreds of rounds, or are those people who claim they've shot 20,000 rounds with no malfunctions? Well, that is the problem with the internet. Sometimes you never know. But information and data like that is always useful. It's always interesting. So that is my experience shooting a SCAR 17. I have no plans on selling this rifle. I sold my other SCARs that I had when I purchased 3 at once. I sold 2 of them. This one I am going to keep. I'm a little sentimental to it. Going to keep using it in videos here and there. We're going to keep shooting it, using it for practice testing as well, for SCAR mags. And I'll build this out in some other way. But I will probably be treating this as some sort of battle rifle moving forward. Maybe putting an ACOG on there. Maybe a 1:8 scope of some sort. Because it is accurate enough to do the job. And it is also lightweight. And one of the coolest features of all is being able to fold the stock, make the gun pretty small, and then do stuff with it. I'll see you guys next time. And it's been a fun ride with this SCAR.